Hi everybody, Michelle McClunan, astrologer and life navigator, and I'm bringing you an astrology update for the next full moon, which is going to be on the 1st of August. And I'm bringing this update to you from a very cold and rainy South Africa. We were experiencing really quite extreme weather in terms of a winter here. I think a lot of people think of Africa as a sunny place, and that's hot all the time, but it's really cold here at the moment. And the weather kind of really goes from summer to winter in a couple of days. And that's very much like the astrology for the month, I think, and for the month of August as well. It's kind of crazy weather. It's a little bit unpredictable. And this is the energy of the full moon as well. Just when you think that something's going this way, it suddenly changes and goes that way. And it's really pushing us to expand our horizons and expand our perceptions and to do things in a different way. So this full moon, as we know, full moons are always when the sun and the moon are opposite each other in the sky. So at the moment we have the sun in Leo and the moon is coming up to an opposition with the sun, which is going to be in Aquarius. Full moons, just to remind you, are always a time to let go, to release. They're also a time when things seem to come to a head, when there's quite a lot of energy. So if you can imagine, the light of the sun is shining onto the moon, and the moon in our charts and in astrology represents our feelings, our emotions, that which is going on inside. So any full moon is actually it can be quite a triggering energy because it's actually shining the light on whatever issues are lurking beneath the surface. And this one's no different to these. In fact, it's even a little bit stronger than most full moons. First of all, it's a supermoon, which means that the moon is actually closer to the earth than normal. And it's the first of 2 full moons this month. The next one's going to be right at the end of the month in Pisces. So this means that we've got 2 supermoons in 1 month. When we have 2 full moons in 1 month, the second one is called a blue moon because it happens so rarely. So it seems that this is kind of perpetuating the change that we're feeling. And as I said in my intro, there's kind of unpredictable energy, but it's also expanding us. So the full moon in Aquarius opposite the sign of Leo, which is where the sun is. Aquarius is an interesting sign. It's the sign of the rebel, the innovator, the inventor. It's often referred to as the sign of the maverick. So Aquarian energy, it's an air sign, it's not a water sign. And Aquarian energy is the energy, it's kind of electric energy. It's quite cerebral, it's quite mind-oriented, and it's quite perceptive in the sense that Aquarius can see things from a higher perspective. So it's not just the rational, lower mind. Aquarius is kind of related to the bigger picture. So this full moon, we're actually able to see the bigger picture of what's actually going on underneath the surface if we just take some time out to do that and to release that which is no longer serving us. So I've been speaking about that quite a lot in my videos of late. In addition to the full moon, we also have Pluto, good old Pluto, which is square the nodes of the moon, which is an evolutionary shift in consciousness. And this is still exact at the time of the full moon. So Pluto is the planet which represents the underworld, the darker side, that which is beneath the surface. So as Pluto is in an alignment with the nodes of the moon, which are also at the beginning of a new cycle, a new sign, the north node is the node of destiny, and it's moved into Aries, and the south node has moved into Libra. So these 2 things don't happen very often, where we have a nodal shift into a new sign, plus a connection with Pluto. So this is actually bringing stuff up to the surface so that we can actually see it. These might be old conditioned patterns of thought. Anything which is, especially at this full moon, anything which we feel is holding us a prisoner, holding us back. And generally speaking, that's the mind. The mind will chatter away and tell us all sorts of reasons why we shouldn't be doing what we're doing, why we should be doing more, and all sorts of things that very often aren't true. So the mind is a little bit like we've got a roommate or a couple of mad, crazy roommates in the attic above us. And the mind is continually telling us to look at the past, to look at the future, to weigh things up, to see things in a rational way, except that it's not necessarily all that rational. So this full moon is giving us the opportunity of stepping out of the drama of what's going on, seeing things from a higher perspective through the heart. Because the sun being in Leo, Leo rules the heart. It also rules creative self-expression, how we express our uniqueness out into the world, whereas Uranus and Aquarius represents the bigger picture, humanity as a whole, the collective, community. So there's many different kind of themes and sub-themes going on here energetically. Astrology really is the study of energy. It's as above, so below. So whatever's happening out there in the cosmos, and cosmos actually means order, is actually happening within us as well. So we respond to the energies and the cosmos responds to our energy. That's how we're all connected. So when we look at the energy of this full moon, I read a little quote that I'd actually picked up a long time ago, and it was a quote from The Little Prince, and it says, "It is only with the heart that one sees rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye." So this full moon is saying connect with our hearts so that we can see the bigger picture, which is actually there for us to see and provided by Aquarius, the sign of Aquarius, which is this higher vision. In addition to all of this, we also have something called the Lionsgate portal, which you might have heard about. And this is something that happens every year. So it's not the first time this has happened. But what happens basically at the Lions portal, which happens between the 28th of July and the 12th of August, is that the Earth, Sirius, the star, and Orion all line up. Now, in ancient cultures, and many people still acknowledge this, Sirius represents our spiritual sun, and then we've got our own sun. And the two of them line up, which shines a light and helps us to find a higher consciousness, again, through the heart, because the sun in astrology is ruled by Leo. Leo rules the heart. So this is, you can see this actually as an opportunity to align more consciously with more awareness with the heart and see the head and the mind as a tool, a useful tool, but not one that needs to rule the show, that needs to run the whole process. In fact, if we filter it through our hearts, that is where the growth comes. That is where the transformation comes. It comes from the heart. It doesn't come from the head, because the head doesn't always tell us the truth. It often gives us stories, and those stories might be linked to our conditioned patterns that we've brought in from childhood, might be from past lives. It doesn't necessarily tell the truth. So this is a full moon which says don't believe what your mind says all the time. Acknowledge it, be aware of it, but don't believe everything it says. So this full moon is very aligned with awareness, and awareness is key. So it could bring out emotions, it could bring out fears, it could bring out insecurities. This has been happening for a while now, so that we can see them and we can see, is this true, is this not true? Do I need to latch onto the story about this, or can I just see it and actually move into my heart and allow myself to flow through this? So if we look at the heart's purpose, it's to connect with the mystery and flow of life, which is the force of the universe. That's what the heart's for. It's to connect us. And at full moons, or whenever there's an Aquarian theme, there's often a theme of separating out from that heart. So it's heart versus head. And very often the head rules or wins, because many of us feel very comfortable with the head and very comfortable with our busy minds. But this full moon and this whole evolutionary process is saying, drop into the heart, because that is where the healing is. We also have the planet Venus, which is retrograde at the moment. It's going to be retrograde for a long time in Leo, which is the sign that rules the heart. Venus is the planet of love. So as she goes back, she will be showing us relationship patterns, reactive patterns in relationships, where we feel that we're lacking, where we feel that we might be criticizing another, and what that is actually, how that's actually contributing to our growth, because our relationships are mirrors to what's going on inside us. So if a relationship is bringing up anger, then the anger is generally somewhere in our own psyche. If the relationship is bringing up resentment or frustration, we need to look inside first and clear what's within us before we project it out. So it's just to see what our patterns are, to allow ourselves to actually be kind enough, to be compassionate with ourselves and others, and not to be too critical. Because the other part of this full moon is that Mercury, which is the planet of the mind, is in Virgo, which is very discerning, is able to make order out of chaos and put things in boxes, and has this desire to get our little ducks all in a neat little row. And Mercury is in an opposition to Saturn. And that can actually feel that ability to actually put things in a row is kind of a bit murky. And it might not be happening as quickly as we want it to. So there's more frustration. And there can be more criticism. So you have a plan, and you've got Mercury and Virgo saying, right, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, what's the outcome? And Saturn in Pisces is saying, I'm not sure what the outcome is. You just need to focus on this step and not be too critical of yourself and those around you. So ease up a little bit, be a little bit more flexible. In fact, I would say be very flexible this full moon. Embrace change. Don't see it as a bad thing. Change is happening. Change is in the air. I mean, I'm watching the trees blowing wildly here. Trees are blowing down. They're blowing onto electricity lines. We don't have any power. So in South Africa, we've always probably been pretty good at actually dealing with change, because there's always a lot of change. At the moment, it's challenging. We have a lot of load shedding, which means that the power gets switched off for sometimes 6 hours a day. And you've got to navigate that in addition to other power outages when the weather's extreme. So this full moon is saying, connect with our hearts. Do what you can just in this moment, this step now. Don't project too much into the future. What can I do now? I can make myself something to eat. I can make myself something warm to drink. I can go outside if the wind's not howling. I can ground myself. I could do a short meditation. Anything which brings you out of here and into your heart is going to help us to navigate this full moon as well as the next month, because there's some quite stormy weather in astrologically, but it's also the initiative of change. How can we use our individual creativity to feed into the collective? We do that through the heart. So I have something to share. How can I share it from the heart? Without worrying too much about the outcome, just I have something to share from the heart. And that may or may not resonate with someone, but I'm doing it anyway, because that is how I shine my unique light. That is Leo, and it's the month of Leo. So how can you shine your light in a creative way, in a unique way, for the benefit not only for yourself, but those around you? That's the way I see it. And the other energy this month that's very up is that Leo is the sign of play and fun and connection with that childlike side of us. So how can you be more creative? Where can you be more creative? Can you make your normal daily tasks into something which is beautiful and elevate whatever you're doing to art, whether it's washing the dishes or cutting up some vegetables? Can you actually bring an element of play and laughter and creativity in? That's our theme for the inner space, our inner space community, which is our online community. I run that with my partner, John Homewood, and we basically focus every month on a different theme, which is lightly themed to the astrology of the month. So this month is playfulness, and we're going to be exploring playfulness, because many of us, when we get older, when we basically grow up into an adult, we lose sight of that playful spirit that we had naturally as a child, and we still have it, but it's been taken over by the thoughts, what we haven't done properly, what we should be doing better. And if you look at a child playing, the child is fully immersed in the present moment. They're fully aware of what's going on, and they're allowing it to creatively unfold. And that is the purpose of being here on this planet. So can we be more playful? And I drew a card. The card that I drew today, also from the Divine Feminine pack, which is by Megan Watterson. It's my favorite pack. And the card that I drew was Amaterasu, who is the goddess of light, which is interesting with the Leo sun and this whole theme with the light in the heart. And it says here, we are all sacred mirrors reflecting back the same light. She was a solar goddess of Japanese mythology, and her name means shining in heaven. So the oldest legends of Amaterasu date back to the 8th century and come from Kojiki, or the Japanese record of ancient matters. In Shinto, kami are spirits or deities, and the most well-known story of a kami in Shinto is when Amaterasu got into a fight with her brother, Susanoo, god of the storms and of the sea. His violence made her so upset and angry that she retreated into a cave, leaving the world in darkness. The kami of merriment placed a mirror outside of her cave and laughed so much that Amaterasu became curious. She peeked outside the cave and saw a beautiful goddess, a stunning vision of the dawn. She was in awe of it, not realizing that it was her own reflection. Surrounded by laughter, Amaterasu's anger and depression lifted, and she agreed to leave the cave, bringing her light with her back into the world. So there are quite a lot of themes here. The Mercury Saturn thing can create depression. The cave can be seen as Pluto in an alignment with these nodes. It says here, when the soul selects this card, the cave is so crucial, drawing inward, hiding our light to restore ourselves and heal from something or someone that felt too intense or too aggressive. When we hide our light, though, we aren't the only ones left in the dark. We take our light from the ones who love us as well. The beauty of Amaterasu is that she emerges from the cave out of curiosity, attracted to someone else's joy. That's when she meets the dawn of her own reflection. She doesn't truly see herself and the beauty of her light until she's drawn out of herself. She sees her own light once she becomes curious about seeing the light that's around her in the levity and laughter of other deities. This is the answer. If we've been too long in retreat, if we've been hiding our light not out of self-love and a soulful need for restoration, but out of a reaction to someone else's pain or something else, then we draw ourselves out by focusing on the joy of others. Seeing their light allows us to see our own. And sometimes even the solar goddess needs to be inspired or reminded of why she shines so brightly, not just for the sake of her own reflection, but also for those beloved beings that need her rays of light to remember their own. Sometimes we need the sight of the faces we brighten in order to remember why we are so devoted to finding our way back into the light. So that's so beautiful with the sun in Leo and the heart and everything I've spoken about. It really does align with the levity and the playfulness of what I've been talking about. The soul voice meditation is imagine someone in this moment that you most want to see laugh and fill with light. And then just exude that from your own being. Intention, we are all sacred mirrors reflecting back the same light. And we are. And this is a time when we are reconnecting with what that light is as our essence. That is our light. That is our essence. And really all we need to do is allow it to shine. It's not a forcing. It's not a doingness. It's just allowing our light to actually shine out of us without all the blocks that we put in the way of that. So I hope that this has helped you, and I hope that you have a beautiful full moon. Take some time out, release that which you don't need to carry, It's a culmination point and a release point and a clarity point. If you'd like to see how these alignments, and they last for a long time, especially the Pluto Nodal axis, that's lasting for a good part of this year. So if you'd like to see how that plays out, you can contact me and set up a session. If you've had a session before, you can do an update session. And if you've never had a session before, then you might want to do a first time reading. Thank you very much for listening and for tuning in. And I'll be back in 2 weeks' time with an update for the next new moon. And that'll be followed by another full moon. Lots of love. Keep shining that heart light.